Okay, so in this module, we're going to be covering Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 12 of your textbook. Chapter 3 covers using Windows 10, Chapter 4 covers personalizing Windows 10, and Chapter 12 covers searching for files.
So there are several new features that are available in Windows 10. First is consolidated start menu with live tiles and apps, so apps being different than applications. The Action Center, virtual desktops, Cortana and searching, the enhanced snapping features, so this would be like being able to snap a window from one side of your screen to the other so that it takes up half the screen. New Windows Explorer features. You can also sign in with a Microsoft account, and you can use said Microsoft account to sync settings between computers. So we're going to be covering those in depth here. So let's go over the Windows 10 user interface. Now this screenshot here was taken before the first anniversary update. So your Windows 10 interface may look just slightly different than the Windows 10 interface you see here, but all the features are essentially located in the same location. So from left to right here, we're just going to go over the Windows 10 UI. So if you click the Start button, that will open the Start menu. So that's the section we see here. So the Start menu basically is just, as its name implies, it's a place for you to start accessing application, apps, and files on your computer. You can see that in the top left-hand side here, or in the top left-hand corner, you've got the user information. So if you've got a picture, it will display there, or it will display your user account name. Under most used, right here you can see the most used apps or applications that you have or that you've used, and this changes depending upon what you use the most. So if you open Edge the most, an icon for Edge will display right here. That's just a user interface change that they've applied to Windows 10 to just make it easier for you to access your most frequently used applications. You can click here to launch the File Explorer. The File Explorer is basically how you access all of the files in your machine. We'll be talking about that here in more depth in a few slides. The settings menu here is the Windows 10 replacement for the control panel. Now they are slowly moving everything from the control panel into the settings menu. It may take a few more major updates before that is applied, but eventually I think everything is going to go away from the control panel is going to go away and the settings menu is going to be what takes over. And then we've got the power button. I covered it up there, sorry about that. You can click that to turn your machine on and off or restart it. If we click all apps, this will show us all of the applications or all the programs that we have installed on our machine. It's just a really quick and easy way for us to access our applications. In the right-hand side here, we can see that we have a whole bunch of these live tiles. So live tiles are basically just a way for you to get a heads-up display or heads-up information that specific applications might want to show you. So for example, we have this news live tile. This might show us a little snippet of the latest news or of our news feed. We also have the weather. So if we wanted to look up, quickly see at a glance what the weather's like outside, we can configure the weather live tile to do that. You can also use live tiles as links. So say, for example, you use Microsoft Edge frequently, you can set up a live tile for Microsoft Edge. You can click that to just launch it. Moving on, we have the Windows search box right down here. The Windows search box allows us to search for files and folders on our computer as well as applications, and it also, with Cortana enabled, allows us to make web searches or smart web searches. So we're going to be talking about that here in a few slides. We can hit the Task View button to quickly switch between our applications. You can go ahead and press that on your Windows 10 installation on your virtual machine to see what that does. You also have a section here for all of your applications, and this section is called the taskbar. So whenever you launch an application, its icon will be placed in the taskbar, and that's how you'll quickly switch back and forth between apps. This is very similar in all versions of Windows. It's just a little bit different in Windows 10. The Notification Center, we'll skip over one thing here. If we click on this icon here, we'll be able to launch the Action Center. So this is this thing we see on the far right hand side of our screen here. The Action Center allows us to configure notifications from web-based applications like Gmail or Outlook.com. And it also shows us some notifications that have to do with our PC specifically. So you might see that, hey, your antivirus is turned off. You can also use the menu below here, or these action buttons, to toggle commonly toggled settings on your machine. So for example, we have an option here for rotation lock if we want to make sure, if we're using a mobile device that can be oriented one way or another, like a tablet, you can lock the orientation so it's a specific way. You also have an option for VPN, so if you connect up to your office remotely from your home, you can quickly turn on and off the VPN. There's a few other options that are available to us here in this menu, and we're not going to go over them in this slide. But just this week, I highly encourage you going through this menu and just seeing what you can turn on and off with those buttons. So that is the Windows 10 user interface in a nutshell. So we briefly discussed the Action Center in the previous slide, but let's just go over it in a little more detail. So the Action Center is a new feature to Windows 10. It consolidates all of your notifications into one place. So this is really useful if you have a whole bunch of notifications that you might get. Or let's back up. This would be useful if you have a whole bunch of web-based applications that you check frequently. I know, for example, I'll check my Facebook, I'll check my Twitter feed, I'll go on and I'll check my email, and you can configure the Action Center such that all of those notifications get consolidated into one location. So it saves you time. The notifications from Windows, applications, and social media will show up here, so that's important. Windows notifications will show up there instead of in little search bubbles, or excuse me, instead of little bubbles like in previous versions of Windows. You can individually customize which notifications show up, so you don't want to have notification overload. I've definitely run into that before. So you can turn some notifications on or off depending on what you want. You can quickly access commonly toggled settings like VPN, Wi-Fi, and airplane mode through this menu, through those action buttons that we looked at in the previous slide. And one thing to keep in mind is you can set up something called quiet hours, which will disable your notifications for up to 12 hours. Now, this is a new feature to Windows 10, quiet hours. So I think this is an important one to know, because if you turn this off, then people won't get their notifications. I definitely had a few users at my office run into this problem. So it's just something to take note of. So that is the Action Center. So virtual desktops is one of those long-awaited features Windows users have been waiting for. This is a feature that has been available on Linux and Mac for quite a long time. Basically, what it allows you to do is it allows you to organize your open applications into virtual desktops. So what that means is that instead of having one desktop, so if you've got a monitor that has, or if you've got a computer that only has one monitor attached, you could use that single monitor as if you had two monitors. You just have to switch back and forth between your quote-unquote monitors or your desktops. So we'll take a look at what this looks like in the next slide. But this allows you to quickly switch between desktops, or excuse me, you can quickly switch between desktops. As with most features in Windows, there is a hotkey for it, so you can press Control and then the Windows key and then your arrow keys to switch between them quickly. You can also press the Task View button, which we looked at in a few slides ago, to swap back and forth between desktops. Now, it is important to note that virtual desktops do not persist in between reboots. So once you reboot your machine, your virtual desktop goes away and then you'll have to reconfigure it. It's really more of an organizational tool anyways, so it's not super useful to have them persist between reboots anyway.
Okay, so let's say, let's look at virtual desktops a little bit further. Let's say we have a PDF up and we want to go back and forth between this PDF and a web application. Well, we could just open up Internet Explorer, but you see we don't have a whole lot of screen real estate. And even if we snap these windows side by side, it's still really hard to see to see what is actually on the screen here. So if you've got limited screen space, one of the things you can do is you can create a new virtual desktop. So to do that, you're just going to click the Task View button, and then you click New Desktop. Now you can see we've got Desktop 1 and Desktop 2. So Desktop 2 has nothing on it, and you can see that even the taskbar doesn't show that we actually have our PDF reader open. Or we could switch back to Desktop 1 and we could see the applications that are open. So one of the things that this allows us to do is it allows us to keep 2 full screen applications open on a computer with limited screen space. So let's say we wanted to move Internet Explorer from one virtual desktop to the other. We'll click the Task View button again, we'll click Internet Explorer, and then we'll just drag it to Desktop 2. And now we can see that we've got the PDF viewer on Desktop 1, and we've got IE on Desktop 2. So it's just as simple as that. And we can use the hotkey, Windows key Shift, and then the left and right hand keys excuse me, to move back and forth. I find it's easier to do it with a taskbar. And right now I'm having some difficulty because I'm on a virtual machine. However, that's pretty much how you go about creating virtual desktops. Now you can have as many virtual desktops as you'd like. So if you want 10 different desktops, you can totally do that. And it's easy enough to drag applications between each virtual desktop.
So let's talk about Cortana and Windows searching. So Cortana is a virtual search assistant. It's very much like OK Google or Siri if you've ever used one of those on your mobile phone. It can be voice activated by simply just saying, "Hey Cortana." It performs a number of tasks, so you can create things like to-do lists, you could create calendar reminders for yourself, you could set alarms for yourself. So a lot of those utilities that you can do with some of the Microsoft's competitors' virtual assistants, you can do with Cortana as well. It's really, really useful on touchscreen devices like mobile phones or tablets, so you don't have to actively look at the device to do something. It is accessed through the Start menu. We looked at that a little bit ago when we looked at the Windows user interface, and it does require you to go through a setup process. So the setup process being you have to have a Microsoft account, and then you have to choose what you want to sync with Cortana. So this could be, your search settings, things of that nature. And you also have to be wary because Cortana does collect some private information and sends it to Microsoft. So if you want to use Cortana, you've got to be aware that it does take some of the information that you're inputting into it and then providing it to Microsoft to make Cortana search a little bit better. So continuing on, let's talk about Windows searching, specifically indexing. So indexing keeps track of files and folders by name, property, and contents so that Windows can quickly locate files based upon your search terms. Functions very much just like the index in a textbook. So grab your textbook and then try to find information on RAM. Well, it's probably pretty hard to search the whole textbook manually for information on RAM. So instead you go to the back of the book, you look at the index tells you that all information on RAM is on page 23, and then you flip to page 23 and you've got it. Indexing in Windows works very much the same as that. So it is enabled by default on all versions of Windows after Windows XP. It does not index all folders and files by default, so it's something to keep in mind. It only indexes commonly used files and folders. And if you go into the indexing utility, you can see what it indexes and what it doesn't. You can also go into that utility and you can force it to index something outside of the scope of what it indexes by default. It does run as a Windows service, so this would be searchindex.exe if you're looking in the Windows Services Management Console. Search indexing can be configured via the control panel. So again, you can configure folders that get indexed. So if you want to configure a folder outside of what it normally indexes to be indexed, you can do that. You can rebuild the index, so sometimes the index does get corrupted, and rebuilding it will take some time, but it will make your searches perform a little bit quicker. You can change the location of the index database. So say you have your operating system installed on a traditional hard drive, but you've plugged in an SSD to your computer and you want to have quicker searches because of the faster storage, you could move the index database to the solid state drive. You can also change the file types that get indexed. So not all files get indexed by default, only commonly used ones. So that's something to keep in mind. So in other words, just to sum up here, indexing is really important because it's what provides quick searching in Windows. So let's talk a little bit about the enhanced snapping feature. So this is a feature that was available in Windows 7 and 8, but it has been enhanced in Windows 10. What this feature allows you to do is it allows you to click and drag the title bar. So this is the bar at the top of a window. And then you can slide it to the side of your screen, and then you can force it to take up that specific half of the screen. So if you have a large monitor and you want to view one program on one side of your screen while viewing another program on the other side of your screen, you can do that. Where I find this really useful as it relates to this class is if you have your favorite web browser browsing MyPCC or D2L, and you've got your lab open on one side of the screen, you could have the word processing you could have your favorite word processing document open on the other side of the screen, and you can snap them together so you can easily do your labs that way. So you can drag to the corner of your screen to make it take up a quarter of your screen. So if you want to take up a quarter instead of just a half, you can do that. And then you can press the Windows key and the arrow keys after you've selected a specific window to move that window to a specific portion of your screen. So I'm going to demonstrate that here on the next slide.
Okay, so just to show you what the snapping feature looks like, we've got our Explorer window open here, and let's say we want to have it take up exactly one half of the screen. We're just going to click the top bar here, the title bar, and then we're going to just drag it to the other side of the screen. Now again, I'm on a virtual machine here, so what this should look like is that. You will notice that when it does take up one half of your screen, or you'll notice that it does take up one half of your screen when you click and drag, but again, I'm on a virtual machine and it's not allowing me to drag from one side to the other. But again, this is what it looks like. We can use the Windows key and the arrow keys to move this window quickly back and forth from one side of the screen to the other. So if I press the Windows key and then left, it undocks it, so to speak, from the left-hand side of the screen. And if I press it one more time, that snaps it to the left-hand side of the screen. You can press Windows key and up to snap it to just the top quarter of the screen. If you press Windows key and up one more time, we can have it full screen. So go ahead and play around with that this week. I think that this is a really, really useful feature of Windows. Just to illustrate one more thing, let's open IE, and we can press Windows key and the left-hand side or the left-hand arrow key to make IE take up one half of the screen, and then you can see that File Explorer or any application you have open kind of like zooms out on itself. If we click this, we can make it take up the other half of the screen. So this is an enhanced feature in Windows 10. The last setting I want to show you here, the last thing I want to show you, if we just put our cursor in between each window, you can see that we have a little vertical bar that appears, and then our cursor changes to two arrows pointing away from each other. That allows us to just left click, and then we can make one window take up just a little bit more of the screen than the other window, and then the other window automatically resizes. So again, this has varying degrees of usability, but I'm sure you will at some point find a use for it.
So let's talk about some of the new features of Windows Explorer. So first off, Windows Explorer in Windows 10 is now called File Explorer. So if you ever see that on a quiz question or something like that, Windows Explorer is now called File Explorer. The menus have now been changed to ribbons, so it's very much like Office 2013 or Office 2016. They've changed File Explorer to sort of match that theme. They've added something called Quick Access in the left-hand column of the File Explorer. So that's this option right here. And Quick Access basically allows you to just pin things to the File Explorer. So you can see here by default we've got desktop, we've got downloads, we've got Dropbox, I've got music pinned. So these are things that I frequently access, and it's very similar to how you pin things to the taskbar that you might frequently access. These you can pin specific folders that you frequently access. Now, similarly to the task or to the start bar, the File Explorer also under this section has recently accessed applications. Recently accessed folders, or frequently accessed folders rather. So if you access the camera folder here frequently, then it's going to pop up in this list. If I were to access a different folder more frequently, then it's possible that I might access, or I might see a different list here. So this is populated depending on what your top 4 accessed folders are. You can see here that we also have this feature called libraries. Actually, sorry, you can't see this in this screenshot, but we'll talk about libraries here in just a few seconds. But basically, libraries are they're a culmination or a combination of different folders that have like content. We also have something called OneDrive. So OneDrive is Microsoft's answer to Dropbox. It basically allows you to take some of your storage and then put it on the cloud, or some of your files and put it on the cloud. So it's cloud-based storage. Now, just like Dropbox, it also maintains a local copy of your data. So even if you're online, you still can access your data. So let's just briefly delve into the Quick Access toolbar. We talked about it in the last slide. So Quick Access, it appears in the left-hand pane of File Explorer by default. You can pin folders to it for Quick Access. The Quick Access menu gives you access to your recently accessed files and folders, as we talked about in the previous slide. And just to reiterate that concept, it automatically generates this list. And again, just to show you, the Quick Access is everything underneath here. And if we were to click on Quick Access in the right-hand column, we would see our most frequently used folders, and then we'd also see any recent files we have opened, or we have opened in the past. So Windows Explorer, or rather File Explorer, has something new to it as of Windows 7 called libraries. So libraries appear in versions of Windows between 7 and 10. And they are virtual folders that aggregate similar files and folders together based upon type. So let's say, for example, you have some pictures on your desktop, you've got some pictures in your My Documents folder, heck, maybe you have a picture up on a server somewhere. You can configure your virtual folders such that when you click Pictures, it shows you all the pictures you have on your computer, regardless of where the file physically resides in the file system. So this can be it's a good way to set up a quick one-stop shop for media. So things like pictures, videos, and music. So again, virtual libraries can encompass multiple folders and multiple disks. You must actually specify folders in each library manually, so it's not set up by default. So this is something that you would have to do. But the good thing is all of your libraries are automatically indexed. So if you have a specific picture and if it's labeled or it has metadata in it, you can use Windows Search to search your libraries for that specific thing. So let's talk a little bit more about OneDrive. So OneDrive is free online storage, and I say free in quotes because Microsoft gives you a small amount for free. At the time of this recording, it's 5 gigabytes. And then if you want more, that's something that you can pay extra for. So it is built into Windows 10 by default. Older versions of Windows require you to download OneDrive from Microsoft, but again, with Windows 10, they're kind of forcing it upon you. OneDrive does require you to sign up for and actively have a Microsoft account. And that's basically just so you can access your files on any PC, regardless of where you are. Files are available even if you don't have an internet connection. So basically what it does is it caches your local files, and then when you make a change, the change gets pushed up to the cloud and then synced to the rest of your devices automatically. It does integrate with Cortana and other applications. For example, your files do get indexed, and you can use Cortana to search your OneDrive files, or search your OneDrive for specific files. One of the great things is that it allows you to easily share files and folders with other people or other OneDrive users. Excuse me. And again, just as a reminder, you do get 5 gigabytes of storage for free, and you can pay Microsoft a little bit of extra cash to have more storage. So with a Microsoft account, one of the new features of Windows 10 is that you can sign in with a Microsoft account. And signing in with a Microsoft account allows you to do some really neat things. One of those is being able to sync settings automatically between computers. So with the sync settings feature turned on, you can sync common settings such as web browser settings, so your history, for example, passwords, language preferences. You can sync your ease of access settings. So if you're hard of hearing or if you're hard of sight, you can configure your ease of access settings once and then sync them across all your computers. And it also does sync other Windows settings. So things like your start menu, calendar, even positions of Windows. The user experience, so the great part about this is that the user experience is the same no matter which computer you log into. But not all of your settings are synced. So for example, your screen resolution is not synced, your theme isn't synced, and any third-party software, even Microsoft software, your settings won't be synced. So it's mainly just things that are related to the operating system specifically. This does require you to sign in with a Microsoft account. So if you're logging into a new PC and you have the option to sign in with a Microsoft account, this will pull all of your settings down from Microsoft and allow you to sync them back and forth. Now, one of the things you need to be careful about is the fact that it does sync things back and forth. So if you have if you're trying to sign into your work PC with your Microsoft account, you might be syncing things from your personal PC that you don't want to have synced. So again, you keep that in mind and use that feature sparingly, I guess you could say. So the settings menu is a new feature that's available with Windows 10. You don't see the settings menu in Windows 8 or below. Basically what the settings menu is it's a new way for Microsoft to give access to users to administrative settings. So it used to be that we had this option called the control panel. And basically what's happening is Microsoft is trying to phase the control panel out for something that looks a little bit newer and more modern. Right now, though, it's set up to change your frequently modified settings. So for example, you can use the systems button here to change the resolution of your PC or to change what applications open what types of documents. Some features and settings, though, since we're in a transition period, can only be changed via the legacy control panel. So if you are looking for a setting that you used to be able to change in the control panel in the settings menu and you can't find it, you still have the option to go to the control panel and change that setting there. In fact, some of the settings menus, some of the settings menu options will actually take you to the legacy control panel. So don't be surprised if you inadvertently end up there, even though you were in the settings menu before. One of the great things though about the settings menu is that it's easily searchable. So you can use this find a setting search box to search for any specific setting. So if you were trying to look for screen resolution, you could just type that in the search box and then it would take you right to the settings menu options, so you don't have to go digging through a bunch of menus to get to the setting that you need. So the settings menu is split into several different categories. Clicking into each one of these buttons will take you to a different place. But just to go over them really quick, we've got the system button, which will take you to display notifications, applications, and power. We've got devices, which will take you to your physical devices plugged into your computer, so like printers and your mouse. We've got network and internet, which will take you to, surprise, the network and internet settings. So you can do things like set up your Wi-Fi and your VPN. You've got personalization, which will set up custom settings for you, so the look and feel of Windows. The accounts menu will take you to your accounts, so you can use that to sync your email, social media settings, like stuff like that. Time and language will take you to a location where you can set your time and your language. So if you are a non-native English speaker, this is a good place to go. Ease of access. This one's really important. This will actually take you to settings that allow you, this will take you to a list of settings that will allow you to change how Windows looks and feels. And it's specifically tailored to people with disabilities. So if you have if you're hard of sight, you can turn on something called the narrator, which will narrate text for you. This is just a bunch of features that are there to help disabled people. You also have privacy settings, so you can change the location privacy setting to off if you don't want Microsoft to know where your PC is physically located. You can also change the camera settings here. And finally, we've got Windows Update and Security, which will allow us to look for, which will allow us to set settings specific to Windows Update, recovery, and backups. So again, the control panel, it has been available for a long time. It's been available since Windows 2.0. Basically, it's there to adjust administrative settings. In Windows 10, the control panel is still available. It hasn't been completely phased out yet, but just like the settings menu, some of the control panel options will now take you to the settings menu instead. So it's important to just know that you may end up in the settings menu, even though you started out in the control panel option or the control panel menu. You can adjust the view of the control panel based on category or alphabetical icons. Personally, I like the icons better. It's just better to see everything instead of having to guess what's in each category. You can adjust the basic settings via applets. For example, the mouse applet will allow you to control the mouse settings. And again, it's being slowly replaced by the new settings menu. And as of right now, the control panel applet or the control panel applets give you more options than their settings menu counterparts. So if you're looking for more specific control over your mouse settings, you might go into the control panel versus the settings menu for that. It should also be noted that some software applications, so this is non-Microsoft applications, will create their own control panel applets. So for example, I have one for my graphics card. That's all controlled by software. So it really depends on the software manufacturer whether or not they choose to do something like that. So you may want to check with the software manufacturer the software developer before you install software to see if it will show up any control panel options. So I mentioned accessibility options, so let's talk about some of the most commonly used ones. So accessibility options, again, just as a refresher, they are options that you can enable in Windows that are set up for helping people with disabilities. So depending upon which disability they have, you can set a specific setting for them or turn on or off a feature for them that will help them use Windows a little bit better. So the first one we want to talk about here is text scaling. So text scaling allows you to scale or zoom the text to make it easier to read. This can be enabled at the application level or system-wide. So at the application level, you can just press the control and the scroll wheel, press the control key and the scroll wheel. Usually you roll the scroll wheel to the front of the mouse while holding the control key to zoom in, and then you can roll it the opposite direction to zoom out. So that's one way for them to zoom in and see stuff inside an application. You can also, and I think this is a little bit more useful for someone that's hard of sight, you can also scale the text of the entire system, so all the text system-wide, and this is done via the display option in the settings menu. So this is a really commonly used one, I'd say. I use it every once in a while. So it's a good idea if someone comes to you and says, hey, I'm having a hard time seeing what's on my screen, to be able to adjust the text scaling for them. The next option is the narrator. So the narrator is a utility that converts the text on screen to speech, and then it sends it to the computer's audio device. So again, this does require an audio device since it's reading text back to you. And this can be turned on via the ease of access settings menu. And then finally, we have the magnifier. So the magnifier can be used in conjunction with text scaling, or it can be used by itself. And it's basically a utility that just enlarges a small section of the screen. So after you've enabled the magnifier, you can press the Windows key and the plus key to turn the magnifier on and then zoom in, or you can press the minus key or Windows key and the minus key to zoom out. So these three tools are by far the most commonly used one in the accessibility options. If you have some time this week, definitely go through and play with each one just to see what settings you can configure. And finally, the last thing we want to talk about is the user profile. So the user profile is a folder that is created automatically for each user to store all of that user's digital assets. So in other words, their data. In Windows Vista through 10, this is located in C users and then the username. So for example, my username is Tim Green. So in Windows 10, my user account would be located, or all the assets for my user account are located in C users Tim Green. This contains, your user profile contains pictures, it contains settings and application data. And each profile has a hidden folder called app data, in which applications will store a lot of their data. And it's hidden because Microsoft wanted to give that the location for software developers to store user profile specific information for each or for specific software. So for example, if you have Microsoft Outlook running and you have it set up so that it caches your email, your cache folder or your cache file, so this will be .pst or .ost files, those are stored in each respective app data folder. So Windows 10 has two types of common user profiles. So first off, it has public, and public user profiles are folders that store information that every user on the system can use. So if you've got like a common set of applications that you want to put on the put a shortcut to on the desktop of every user of your system, you can store those shortcuts in C users public and then desktop, and then that will place that application on every user's desktop. The other type of profile is called the default profile. So This is a hidden folder that stores the data configuration profile for new users. So when a new user is created, this folder gets copied to C users, and then it gets automatically renamed to the new user's new username when they log in for the first time. So this is basically a default configuration. So if you want new users on your system to get set up with any custom settings, you could change the default profile so that those settings get copied to the new user, or each new user that's installed on your system. So the user profile is a really important thing to understand in Windows, I think. Again, it's basically where all of the assets for each specific user are stored. And when we talk about backups, this will become very important because if you want to back up user data, you would want to back up a user profile. So that pretty much concludes the presentation this week. Again, go back through and look at some of the utilities that we looked at this week and play around with them and see what you can see with them.